Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Imaging USA Unpacked. Today we have a treat. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the man who can bring art, science, and business together, one of the founding members of Fox and Brazen. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Travis Stitt, everyone.
Thank you
Travis,
so much. Thank you.
you're very welcome, bro. Thank you for joining us today. We're gonna dive into it because
Let's
you
do
have
it.
been the buzz for a lot of people starting to think differently about their business.
Well, that's the goal here, right? Is there's a lot out there, and what I'm really excited to do is work with creatives and trying to just change kind of the way they think about business. That it's not an evil, it's not something that you just have to do in order to take photos. But if you really get into it and really focus on it and kind of learn it, it can be this incredibly powerful engine that you can use to drive wherever you want to go on anything you want to do.
Absolutely. Especially today, it's beautiful to think creatively. And that applies so much to business, right?
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah, 100%. So like to that point, I think some people kind of get off the rails a little bit is they think that business things are not creative at all. And in the about 20 years I've spent in large industry, the number one thing that everyone is clamoring for and asking for is creative people. Ironically enough, you wouldn't think that. I would, but a lot of people don't necessarily think that. But the problem solving, the creativity, those are really the core of things that allow people to succeed. And we do it every day. And like photography, you do it, right? You have to know where the lighting is. You have to know how to dial in your camera. You're constantly solving a problem with clients, for clients in order to produce art. So that ability to be creative across not only just a visual medium, but being able just to take those kind of creative genes and use them inside your business, I think gives creatives a massive step up compared to people that not aren't necessarily are. And maybe these are things I'm going to say are going to get me in trouble in some games, but I do think that they're really positioned quite well compared to other people in the industry.
absolutely, absolutely. And I also, before we even go any further, I want to thank all of our friends in the chat. If you have any questions at all for Travis today, please shoot them our way. This is a recap of our session at Imaging USA. So if you have any questions, any takeaways, please, we welcome your questions. So don't be shy. Bring it on. We're ready for them. And
Absolutely.
speaking of that session, your session was called Think Like a CEO. Know thyself and master your business. That says so much in that title.
Yeah.
Elaborate a little bit for me, Travis.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So there's a couple different things, right? One of the things that was kind of the inspiration for the class is we constantly hear this idea that hey, as a small business owner, you have to be the CEO, you have to be all of the C-suite positions, and you got to be that person. But where I think sometimes that statement kind of falls down is, well, what is a CEO and what are they really doing? Like, what is their actual goal? We see CEOs on television, but it's a lot like the Elon Musks and the Bob Igors and things like this. They're almost these celebrity CEOs versus the thousands and thousands and thousands of CEOs that you never hear of, but are really, really successful. So the concept behind the class, which was an absolute blast to put together, and everyone who came and attended was absolutely the best. We had an absolute great time. Is really this concept of taking what a CEO does in, say, a Fortune 500 company and breaking it down where you can take those skill sets, those approaches, and apply them to your small business. Because the reality is it doesn't matter if you have one employee or a million employees, the functionality of a CEO behind the scenes is identical. They're literally doing the exact same thing. It's just a scale of economy that's driving it per se. So that was the heart of it. And then as a piece of that, what you really start to figure out as you dive into this and kind of start going through this process that was laid out is you really start to do discover things about yourself. Like, what are the goals of your company? How are you going to get there? What is a longer vision? What is your mission statement? right? Do I really understand the finances of my business? Am I thinking strategically versus tactically? And all of those pieces. So you really do kind of kind of dorkily kind of start to go through this little bit of a self-discovery as you're doing this, as you're really trying to position yourself and your company for success in the future.
Absolutely. It's scary to have the mindset of a CEO because I see, man, it's a lot of work. For some people, that can probably be discouraging than the realities of managing a business. Are there any tips to help people with not getting overwhelmed and achieving that
Absolutely.
goal of managing their business?
Absolutely. And what you're going to find out is that most people are actually doing about 70% of the right stuff. And really the smallest thing is always remember, like, Rome, there's 1,000 of these phrases. Rome wasn't built in a day. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. But the real answer is break it down into very small pieces, but at the same time, set a goal, right? Understand not only where you want to go with your business, but why do you want to go there? And also keep in mind that these two concepts don't have to be, we're going to put a person on the moon, or, I want to be the largest photography business in the United States. It doesn't have to be something like that. It could literally be, I want to have a business where I can go on vacation, or I want to have a business where I have a work-life balance, or I can put my kids through college, or whatever it is, right? That goal statement doesn't need to be this monster that becomes so overwhelming, because it's a very personal thing. And that goal is supposed to be personal. And by keeping it that way, your odds of success go up, because what you then start to discover is a why, right? So when that goal corresponds with that why, you now have a daily motivator that when you get up every day, it's not overwhelming. It's the fact that I'm working towards my vision and I'm fueled by that passion in order to get there. And I think that's actually one of the things that small business owners, and especially art business owners, actually do really, really well compared to the tech industry. Is what fuels them is a passion that they have that's driving, versus something where you're being hired in from the outside in order to take a company to whatever Wall Street is telling you in order to do, right? That's a different kind of passion. But when it becomes very personal, that's where your odds of success really go up. And it helps reduce that being overwhelmed. And it also allows you to see the smaller pieces, those smaller bites, in order to get to that goal, which will kind of help reduce things from being overwhelming.
Yep, absolutely. You nailed it. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself at all. Yeah, because photographers, I think most of the ones that I meet, they are passionate about photography.
Yeah,
Of course, they want to be successful business owners and know how to price themselves accordingly and pay their bills through their passion. But through that journey of photography, you're figuring out, am I the wedding photographer? Am I the landscape photographer? Do I want to do portraits? So they have a chance to test the waters as they're building their business and
absolutely.
choose.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, one of the coolest things about a photography business, so kind of having the business hat on, is, and my wife and I, we talk about this all the time, is there are certain fields that you go into where it becomes very narrowed, right? Like, you hear guys that are like, well, I want to do computer software coding, and that's great. And you can do a lot with that, but what you can start to happen as you move through your career is you start to get very, very narrowed. And when you get narrowed, job opportunities can actually start to get less and less and less because of the skill sets. Photography and art, interestingly enough, is the longer you do it, the more you do it, the opportunities actually can start to expand. So you can have a passion for weddings, but maybe you're great at families and corporate and headshots. And all of a sudden, wow, that portfolio is actually really big. And then you start to get into things that's like, I do albums really well. And since I've been doing my own marketing, I'm now actually getting into where basically I'm a pretty decent graphic designer. So all of a sudden I can use those art skills. So I think it's always phenomenal and a unique position where a lot of the photo art people, as they start in their small businesses, become more and more and more. They're actually an opportunity where they can grow almost anywhere they want to go, versus this idea of some other job fields that the longer you go, the actually more restrictive you get in your opportunities. So I think that, to your point, right? The photography market is phenomenal, because not only can you align a passion to a very specific field, but from an actual business perspective, it's massive in the opportunities, where you can start to cover a huge demographic space versus the concept of saying, this is it. I got my little box, and if I'm nothing's in that box, I'm in trouble from a financial and business perspective. So it is really cool, as you start to look at photography in general, that it does have a huge opportunity space, that one individual can actually cover versus, say, kind of other companies if you're manufacturing things or producing software.
Absolutely. You know, that assembly line, once you're there, that's all you got there for the most
Hmm.
part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even with your niche in photography, if your niche is, one niche, you could educate and be successful as an educator in photography as
Absolutely.
well. People always coming into the photography space wanting to learn something different or not elevate their skills, but even go across platform. Like, I'm good here. I want to get better here. I want to get better there. There are workshops that are available for that. So that's awesome. Well, Travis, I want to share something with you.
Sure.
All right. We have some survey results for your
Okay.
session, and people want
Okay.
you to know how they felt
Okay.
about it. And I want to share it with you.
All right.
All right, awesome. So I got about four of them because, to be honest with you, you had a lot of positive feedback, a lot of survey results come in. I email you some of that stuff, but I picked like four that kind of stood out.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, one person says, so useful. Going to implement almost everything, he said. Thinking like a business owner and not an artist is one of my biggest struggles. This seminar was probably one I actually needed the most out of all the classes I took. I'm so happy to hear photographers say that. So happy because they come into photography, like you said, with a passion. I want to create art. I want to create art. This person saw something that was holding them back, what they needed, and you fed it to them. So thank you for contributing there.
No, I appreciate that. And lots of credit to that person, right? You go to these conferences, and I go to a ton myself, and I fall into this trap. I get totally seduced from like, oh, that looks so cool. I want to go do that. And then you sit there and you realize, but I already know how to do that. So to really take the time and go into a conference and be so self-aware that they actually chose the courses that directly related to, say, maybe a gap from where they want to be in their business, that is so hard to do, because it's time, it's money, it's effort, and to sit there and go, this could potentially be uncomfortable, this might not be fun, but I know I need it. That person needs to get a ton of credit just for coming out and doing that, because that is not an easy place to be. But that's the place that we all need to be as individuals, is to kind of put ourselves into what are the courses we need to take, not what we want to take. And if we're slightly uncomfortable in the class, that means we're probably in the right place, because if you're going to be that slightly uncomfortable, have it in a room surrounded by 400 other PPA members that are being supportive of each other, versus you're discovering this maybe by yourself in your studio at that time. So again, that's good for that person, because that's very hard to do. So congratulations to them, that's for
Absolutely.
sure.
That person took their vegetables that day and they needed it. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we'll go back and forth, but I
Sure.
want to make sure that we're taking care of people in the chat because we do have a couple questions in here that we can answer, and they're coming in. So that's awesome. Thank you everybody for participating. We appreciate that.
All right. So yes, I do see them in here. So what do you wish you knew when you started? Oh, that is a tough one. That's a tough one. So there's a couple things, right? Um, One of the things that I wish I knew when I started is you're gonna have ups and downs. That's just the way it's going to be. There's going to be certain parts of certain seasons where like you're potentially making money hand over fist and you can do no wrong. And then there could be another 6 months where there's a drought. And that's just the way that the market goes. It's the way the wedding cycle rolls. I know we're seeing it now in certain areas. So I wish I knew when I started out that as a piece of that, you recognize those, but view those as opportunities, where those low spaces allow you to focus on yourself and on your business and to perfect something which could then be used to create a new high space. So I really wish I knew that, because when we got into it, we were very like wedding focused, and we hit it right when weddings were huge, and we were doing off camera lighting before that was a thing. So like we kind of took off, which was wonderful. but you were always going to hit a plateau at some point. And it's being able to recognize that that's not a bad thing. That is just the way the markets roll. So be prepared for it. Make sure that you're budgeting accordingly for it. And at the same time is don't take it as a personal thing. Take it as the fact is that we're in a business that hyper changes. I think we reinvent ourselves. I mean, every 6 months to 18 months, this business is changing right now. So because of that, and recognizing it, it's the idea of just saying, hold on, hold fast as you do it, but recognize there's going to be up and downs.
Hyper change. Man, that changes my perspective completely.
I mean, you can see everything from just if you follow the tool sets, right? I mean, you go back, oh gosh, I'm dating myself now. You go back 12, 13 years, right? All of a sudden the barrier of entry drops into cameras and it just floods with people, right? Whole industry changes from ground one. Boom, instantly. And then the next thing you know is all off-camera flash becomes battery operated. Godox rolls out, and now introduces a lower cost point. Now, what used to be a huge separator, everyone does it. Everyone in air quotes. It's still challenging, but it's considered more of an industry norm as you start to do it, right? Then LED lighting became a thing, right? Now all of a sudden you're constant LED lighting, and now you got 4-foot long LED lights that can run for an hour and a half off a battery. So now every room has the best sunlight you've ever seen, right? Like, it's amazing how the technology is changing and driving things, which is therefore driving customer expectations. I mean, this changed our industry, like it or not. I'm not going to go on a tirade about it, but that is it. So there's so much that happens as we become commoditized, but then specialized simultaneously, that just recognizing that and making sure that you can always become a discriminator in the business, that's what's going to set you apart. And just recognizing that and being prepared for it is going to save a lot of heartache, right? Because when something changes, it's not, oh no, it's, well, here we go again. We just went mirrorless. Okay, that's no big deal. We'll go do that. And then you adapt and you move forward.
Absolutely. And you can still be creative at the same time. That's the beautiful part
Oh,
about it.
100%.
These are
Yep,
tools
yes.
that you can use to enhance your creativity.
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, what it does is I made the statement earlier that basically your problem solver is with a camera, right? It just literally pushes that to the max, which just says, okay, we have to solve more problems. Now the tool base has changed. How do we do that and continue to move forward?
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
So we
All right. We
have,
got
oh, go ahead.
no. These are your questions. Let's
I'm,
let's
I'm just
go.
I'm just I'm just kind of reading down here. Hang on, make sure. All right, what we just did, Edward. So let's do Lauren. Travis, for marketing, would you recommend outsourcing or learning how to be a better marketer and do everything yourself? So I'm going to answer you by not really answering you, which is the short answer is you kind of need to do both. So there's a general rule which I like to use, which is know what you're really, really good at and outsource the rest. But that only works when whatever you're really, really good at makes you enough money that it dwarfs outsourcing, right? So for example, I'm really good at doing editing, so I'm not going to outsource it because I can do it better and faster and save the money. And the money that I make outsourcing editing, I'm going to outsource maybe my bookkeeping to a CPA, right? Because that's worth the investment. So you have to make sure that you're always measuring that when you outsource things, that the cost is worth it, not just you're getting rid of it because you don't know anything about it. The other thing, especially in marketing in particular, is you start to get into social media, you start to get into SEO, you start to get into marketing. There's 1,000 different opinions, there's 1,000 different companies, there's 1,000 different brands that are promising you everything. My general answer is it's probably a combination of things that you're going to need in order to be successful, but you having a base understanding of all of it is going to give you that little litmus test or kind of BS test that when you're looking for someone to outsource to, you know whether or not they're actually going to be able to deliver or talk about what they're doing. At the same time, there's a lot of marketing stuff that you can do yourself, which will help save money, but then you can outsource another piece. So for example, there's some phenomenal self-branding guides that you can find out on the internet that talk about how you establish a brand, go a brand, pick colors for a brand, what fonts you should use, right? Use that artistic capability that you have where maybe you could do all of that upfront branding yourself and then look for maybe an SEO specialist because that's maybe something outside your wheelhouse, or look for some help on scheduling all your social media posts because that could take hours that you're not looking to do. So I would say is to kind of summarize that is get a really good base so you have some understanding of what you need and what you don't need, and then do the things that are probably pretty personal that you can do, and then start to look for potentially outsourcing those things that at the same time, if you were to do your job, you can make enough money that it makes that outsourcing worth its while. But always remember, you can start small and expand out, because you're going to want to find what works and doesn't work, and then make those moves, not spend a huge amount of money up front. You sink a whole bunch of money into it, it suddenly doesn't work, and then you feel very frustrated, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid.
Awesome. Thank you for that advice. That's great.
All
All
right.
right.
So then let's pick another one here. How can we get in contact with you? That's fine. You can, I'm on Instagram at Uncork Travis. You can DM me there. You can also reach out through our Fox and Brazen page at any time to get a hold of us. And I'm actively involved on Facebook and all your social media channels. So if you search, you can always find me on any of those. I love talking to people. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And then if we keep going up, do you prefer DSLR or mirrorless cameras? Okay, so a couple years ago we made the mirrorless switch, and I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to hate it. And the reason being is we made a huge investment in the lenses. We love to shoot prime. It was like the best thing ever. You get very comfortable with your camera and your DSLRs. And I just wanted to pick up the mirrorless and be like, eye tracking. It looks like a toy, and I just kind of wanted to hate it. And I actually love it. It's like my best. I can't believe we almost didn't do it earlier, but I'm glad we did wait, because we're at the point where we shoot the Canon R3s, so it's the bigger body, the 2 card slots. It met all our requirements, but I do like the mirrorless. It's lighter, it's smaller, and a lot of the AI technology for the eye tracking and face recognition, everything to make sure that stuff's in focus, especially on portraits and weddings, is absolutely phenomenal and stunning. And here's the other thing too. There's no world where the industry isn't moving in that direction. Like, they're at some point, I'm not saying when, I don't know, I'm not in the industry from that direction, they're going to stop making DSLRs. It's going to happen. Mirrorless is what they're producing. It's what everyone is sliding over to. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it. You have to recognize what it is and what it isn't, like any other tool. It doesn't mystically do everything. But at the same time, I do like it, and I'm not getting any younger on weddings, so the lighter the camera and the lighter the 70 to 200, the more I'm enjoying it right now, selfishly. So
I agree with you 200%.
yeah. And the next question, which goes in that, which mirrorless camera should we get? Which one's the best? I said this. I taught some photo walks, and I say things like this that kind of get me in trouble, which is I'm really not the best guy to talk to about that, because the reality is if you start to look at Canon, Nikon, and Sony, even Fujifilm and all some of those, the differences between them are pretty subtle comparatively in the market space, right? My recommendation is go follow the people that's what they obsess over. It's like literally all that stuff. I'll drop a name, Seth Miranda. He does a lot for PPA. He's phenomenal when it comes to this. Like, if he likes it, go buy it, because he pretty much hates everything, which is a phenomenal thing. He gives you very, very accurate reviews on his YouTube. Any of that stuff, go follow him when it comes to that. He's the expert in that area. My answer is I am looking for cameras that make sure I can shoot onto 2 cards, highly reliable. I can keep them maintained. They're inside an industry norm. I can shoot phenomenally in low light, right? When I drop it, break it, I can get it fixed within a matter of days if need be. I'm actually looking for it from almost that business perspective that says that thing is a tool that I use to create imagery. It is not something that I kind of stake my ego in on what camera I'm using. I want to use the best tool for the job. And that's how I look at it. And when my business partner and wife tells me that there's better tools out there than we're using, we do the math and budgeting and go figure out how to get those as we do it. So that's a tough question, but my answer is go find the people that are experts in it and knock yourself out. We shoot Canon. I love Canon. I think they're ridiculous in what they do, and their customer service on their CPS is absolutely phenomenal.
Very
But
good.
again, Nikon and Sony, great as well.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, you
Uh,
buy the camera, but the camera's going to pick you.
oh yeah, and like there's this old thing where I think it's even funnier is the whole conversation about finding light is actually being one of the key things really does pay off. So quick side story. We're shooting a wedding and we're in this basement and this beautiful window and it has the lights coming off and it's making the most perfect Rembrandt lighting on this guy. Had a natural, just everything was ridiculously good. Solid color wall in the background, phenomenal. I'm taking his picture, I'm getting ready, and I'm showing him off the back of the camera and he goes, "Man, your camera's great." I'm like, "Give me your cell phone." So he took his cell phone, just make sure you bring the brightness down, right? You actually like exposed it correctly, took the picture. I was like, there you go. Blew his mind, right? So as I tell everyone, the cameras can do amazing things, editing can do amazing things, but if you stick to the basics of like how do you really light really, really well, that it doesn't matter what you got, the camera will take care of you.
Absolutely. I know guys who still shoot on old film cameras and they have some
Sure.
amazing work.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones is my first Canon 5D, like the original. It only went to 1600 ISO, but just the way it looks, absolutely stunning.
Hmm,
All
hmm.
right. So to hop back to some of the business stuff, let's see here. Do you recommend joining a social media business group in your area? What about business clubs that meet in person that are in local? Great question. So again, this can be a double-edged sword. My answer always is generally speaking, the old phrase where you'll be in 10 years is based off of who you know and what books you read, probably fairly accurate. Notice how it's not just who you know, because it's also what information you have. So when joining any form of local business group, my answer always is it's great for networking, but at the same time, make sure, and this does happen from time to time, that it's not some form of multi-level marketing. Make sure that it's not form of a reciprocity group that basically says you have to use people inside that group and they're supposed to use you, right? You need to make sure it fits your business models. Now, with that being said, joining your local town's chamber of commerce, always beneficial. You meet everyone, you understand what's happening in the town, you get to make connections, they'll call upon you for various services that they'd like to maybe hire you for, and all of those things. So the short answer, right, is networking and getting in business groups is almost always a good thing. At the same time, not every business group is going to be a fit for you, how you do business, or your personality and what you want to do. But every time you do one of those, keep in mind you're going to take away lessons learned. Well, that's not what I wanted to be, but now I know, and I learned some from stuff it as well. Also balance that versus the time that you put into it versus the work you get out of it. If you're spending a lot of time in these groups and not seeing any work from it, either you need to figure out maybe you're not participating in the group correctly, or that's not the right group for you, and you need to go find another one in order to make sure it's being successful for you, right? So try lots of things, set a marker. I'm going to try it for 3, 4, 6 months. If it doesn't work, I'm out. If it starts to work, hold on to it. And then when it doesn't work anymore, get out, right? But the key is always set goals and metrics for yourself that you can judge whether or not things are working, and that will help you make decisions, which will kind of help from all that business acumen. So again, I kind of answered your question where it's be careful, but at the same time, I've heard stories. Best thing the guy ever did, the photographer did. They loved it. They made a whole bunch of money. I've also heard stories where it's really gone nowhere. So you just need to kind of make sure that try things, see if it works for you.
Yeah, and going local with your local business commerce is great. Chamber of Commerce is great. Get to meet your
Yeah,
neighbors, work in your backyard. Travel distance is probably not far because you're so local to the community. So that's a great way to establish a short marketing plan.
absolutely. And they're the first to get a lot of the information. Just keep in mind, most of them control a lot of the basically certificates and licensing in the area as well, right? So they're the first to hear a lot of information in where somebody wants to, in our town of Phoenixville, it's with a colonial theater where the Blob, yes, the 1950s Blob was filmed, and they do Blob Fest every year. Well, we get to hear what week it is about almost a month ahead of time because of all the licensing being filed through. So what we're able to then do is say, oh, all that licensing is being filed in. Well, we should make sure that we're definitely has our studio open, the lights are on. Maybe we'll get a model and photographer in there, right? Or a family. We're going to do stuff so as people are walking down the street, they can see what is going, so we can continue to get kind of that word out. So yes, they're a wealth of information, those local chambers of commerce, and how they can help you for sure.
Awesome, awesome. I want to share another comment while you're question hunting there,
Yeah,
Travis.
sounds good.
One person said that, which I do appreciate. He says, or she clarified my CEO role. and clarified some areas to focus on and be more organized. So that's coming from someone who has a business, who has established, but they also see value in the message you have brought to them to make some changes and adjustments to help improve their business.
No, and that's great. I mean, I really appreciate his comment. And what as kind of cliche as it sounds, uh, continual learning, I'm a firm believer is literally the key to success, period, right? Is that everything is moving so fast that, and everything changes so quickly that what we were doing today might not be working in the future. But if we're prepared for it and we're constantly learning what that looks like, it's not painful anymore, right? We also don't become very static in our ways, right? You become very agile. You're looking at what is changing. And what's really cool about business in particular, and that this is going to kind of answer actually one of the questions, which is what do people lack when it comes to business and being an owner, right? Is that the core fundamentals of actual business haven't really changed since the first time somebody traded a seashell for a palm frond. Like it's pretty much has been the same since the dawn of man. And especially the modern kind of economic models were really kind of set in the late 1800s and kind of post 1940 World War II. But the concepts is that profit, loss, metrics, all that really hasn't changed, which is cool. Because that means if you're able to form a really cool base and understanding of that, that will give you the success and give you that foundation. So as you're continuing to learn and looking to see how people are modernizing with technologies, with approaches, you have this incredible foundation to then change your business rapidly, making sure you're always adaptive and being set up for success, right? So what do people lack when it comes to being a business and being an owner? Not always, but if you look at a lot of the, we're going to call it art business fields, it's actually a lack of understanding of what basic business is. And on top of it is the concept of understanding that sales is not a dirty word, right? If you don't sell things, you don't make money, you don't make money, you don't stay in business, you don't stay in business, you can't do your art. So it kind of becomes this cycle. So great for that person, absolutely, and I commend them on that continual learning as they go, since that is an awesome and fun mindset to have.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I think we got time for one more question. I'm gonna do one more survey result. Audience, if you got a question, now is the time to do it. Travis is a busy man. He's busy growing businesses. So I'm begging him for like 30 more seconds, one more minute. So bring that question in there. All right, Travis. My last survey result. I wasn't thinking about this class and decided late to take it. Blown away. I love the content. A lot of things hit home and so many ideas I can use right away. Love that. Because imaging is about that. Imaging is about networking, learning new skills, and applying it to your business. And this person is going to apply it to their business right away. So I'm pretty sure, I hope they're doing successful right now.
Yeah, me too. And I think one of the coolest things about conferences is the there's not a single class you can take that you can't walk away with one new thing. I don't care if you even teach the class, you'll always walk away with something new as even like you're talking about it, which I think is phenomenal. The other cool thing about a conference, and I recommend to everybody is, and this is what Jen and I used to do back in the day, and we still do, but used to do was we would literally write all our notes. And at the end of the class, we would say, what are the two things that we want to do right now? And we would write those at the bottom of the piece of paper. And then that night we would go to dinner and we would take out all of our notes, we put them all over the table, and we took those two things and laid them out. And we said, okay, starting right now, it makes sense. We're going to do those two things, and those two things across 5 classes became 10 things. And we're going to do those 10 things, and we're changing the business right now. So we would immediately change the business, we'd make a plan for it, and we would do it. And we use these conferences, and especially Imaging USA, with the incredible amount of wealth and knowledge there, which is saying you can turn your business on a dime very, very quickly and use it as a jump off point. So absolutely, walk away from a class and what are the two things I can do immediately? And if you're in a class and it doesn't seem very apparent right off the bat that they're not telling you these are the things you need to change and do immediately, when they all ask for questions, ask, what are the two things you recommend I do right now in my business that's going to have a big impact? And they'll tell you, hey, go do this and go do that. And I think it's going to make a world of difference. You got that, and then immediately go do it. And if you're able just to do 2 or 3 things from a class, or even one from a class, and you do it, those small changes in a disciplined manner, you're not even going to recognize where you're going to see yourself a year from
You just touched my soul when you said that. You
now.
did. Oh my God. That is so powerful. 'Cause I can imagine all the sessions that we have in there. It's
Yeah,
a plethora of information. And if you can
yeah,
take away 2 things from each class or even 1 thing, that will guarantee it will change your business.
yeah,
Guaranteed. That's
yeah,
genius.
absolutely.
I love it. Love it. Thank you, Travis. All right, I'll let you pick the final question. It's up to you.
All right, let's see here. I think there's this one right at the top, which was says, when networking at a conference, what would you recommend as a best practice or best practices? So I don't care how long you've been doing networking. Networking can always be anxiety, right? It can always induce anxiety. You don't know people. How do you go up and talk to them? My answer is a little bit twofold. The first thing is you always want to make sure you're networking in a manner where you're being your authentic self, right? You need to be you, because what's going to attract people is really who you are. Because everyone is actually incredibly fascinating and interesting, but sometimes, especially in a networking event, people kind of put a front on where they think that's what people want to see. So don't do that, right? Be your authentic self as you're doing it. And one of the best ways is take advantage of those networking events that are designed to help break down those walls. So one of the greatest things, and yes, PPA is awesome. And keep me honest with the name, I forget, but it's like the first night it was Alley, it, Networking Alley
Uh, Networking
is the
Alley,
network.
yes.
Yeah, right. Where you have everyone right there, and it's totally designed to go ask questions. And you're going to ask a question, and the person next to you is going to have the same question. Now suddenly you're talking about it, and now you've exchanged information. Boom, you just networked, right? So those environments that are set up to specifically network, great places to go to. It helps reduce the anxiety. It creates a format allowing you to be successful in being able to network. Plus, like the networking alley at PPA, at Imaging USA, you can go get answers on specific things. So go do that. If that's not necessarily something that works very well, like maybe you can't attend or whatever it is, look for the opportunities where basically people are congregating a whole lot, right? So one of the tricks that I've always used is basically hang out at the bar. Now, I'm not saying go get drunk. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if that's where people are congregating, just be there. And what you can start to do is as people come up and make drink orders, it's always one of those that's like, oh, you like blank? Try this. Well, now you're having a conversation, nothing related to why you're at the conference, and now but you have a common ground to work from. And then they ask and they ask, and you can have conversations. Don't expect networking to be one of these things where you walk in and you walk out with 10,000 new contacts and about 16 best friends, right? It's just about making those contacts where, oh, I recognize you at the next conference, or hey, I have a question. Remember, we met at the networking alley. I just had a quick question for you. Can you respond back? Oh yeah, I do remember. Yeah, you asked this really cool question about marketing or something of that sort, right? So it's just about getting the idea of recognition, breaking that glass, and then through kind of continually keeping that communication with people, it'll just build, because one person's going to find you cool and they're going to introduce you to the next person, and they're going to find you cool and they're going to introduce you to the next person, next person, next person. So start small, go in with a low goal, be patient, go to those areas designed for networking, and just whatever happens, don't stop. Just keep doing it over and over and over again, and it'll take root and you'll eventually get there.
Absolutely. It'll come naturally to you. And now it's a party.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the whole goal. Absolutely.
That's right. Well, Travis, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. To our friends in the thank you for your questions. They're greatly appreciated. I hope you can take additional value away from this. You can reach Travis on his contact information that he shared with you. And you can also view this unpacked session on Imaging USA on PPA.com in the next 2 weeks. So, again, thank you for your time. Everyone be blessed. Have a fantastic rest of the day. Travis, thank you for all you do. And I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, everybody. Been a pleasure.